Welcome back to an unexpected art lesson, the show where we talk about everything you didn't know about art. This week we continue our deep dive into Hieronymus Bosch. Content warning for Dragon Age spoilers. So you said you had 3 pieces that you wanted to talk about. We've already talked about 2 in The Garden of Earthly Delights and The Temptation of St. Anthony. What is our third? Asking because I don't remember what you said last time.
Of course, the third triptych that I would be discussing would be Bosch's The Last Judgment, which, if the first 2 were kind of more of a introspective into Bosch's mindset, The Last Judgment is, let's just go with, we're no longer being subtle about the nightmare fuel and steering right into it.
No, not subtle at all. There's some interesting stuff going on here. It doesn't feel quite as busy as the Garden of Earthly Delights was, but there's still a lot going on and a lot that I'm sure you could zoom in and get distracted by all kinds of things. But tell us a little bit about this.
Of course. So this particular piece was created by Bosch in 1482. And for those of you just tuning in, of course, Hieronymus Bosch is one of the early Netherland artists. And currently, this particular triptych is displayed in the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, Austria. Delightful country! This particular piece is painted in grisaille on panel. Of course, the outside of these are done in the usual fresco style that Bosch was known for. This particular piece does measure in total 64 inches by 95 when folded open. Currently displayed at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Now, this particular one still deals with Bosch's familiar setting of the three panels to tell the story. Interestingly enough, the lower part of The Last Judgment, the panel is theorized to be incomplete. However, we will discuss the parts that we do know exist. So the left panel, of course, shows the Garden of Eden. At the top, God is shown seated in heaven. And, of course, the rebel angels, which does play into the standard mythos there, are cast out of heaven and transformed into insects. There are some deep video game connotations there, as many games do depict the denizens of either planes as either monstrous, grotesque, or beautiful. Obviously, you can tell which one they're going for with this particular image.
Grotesque, kind of like some of the things that you have to fight in Dragon Age. Yes, I'm obsessed. I will not be stopping talking about Dragon Age. Listeners, this is part of my personality. You'll get used to it. Some of the demons, especially like with the pride demons with the multiple eyes being almost spider-like. Also, they're pain in the butt to kill, I have to say.
Dragon Age actually does bring up a really interesting thought process on that, considering Bosch's surrealism does deal greatly with the entire world of the unseen, and I believe Dragon Age and the Fade, and especially some of the creatures found within it, could be an interesting connotation between the two.
So within the Dragon Age world, there is the world that all the characters live in, and then there's the Fade, which is another place, and that's where magic comes from. Except for you find out those 2 places weren't always separated. Those weren't originally 2 different things, and a certain god, Finharel, trickster god, put up the veil between the worlds. It's very strongly hinted at the end of Inquisition that Solus, who is Finharel, minor spoilers for Dragon Age Inquisition, apologies, I will be adding content warning for Dragon Age spoilers, he's going to tear down the veil. There's also the fun fact that Flemeth, whose character you meet in all 3 games, is Mythal, another goddess. I've also learned that in Veilguard, through a friend of mine, you are from the Fade. You live in the Fade. Which I'm very excited about. I got to see, he gave me just a little teaser.
I am so looking forward to hearing more about Veilguard, as I have a habit of trying to finish the previous game in the saga first, and yeah.
Oh, another fun thing that might tie some into Bosch's style of like art and storytelling, which you'll be able to speak on more, is the explanation for demons is they start out as just normal spirits, but as they get pulled into our world through the veil, they become confused, their purpose becomes twisted, and thus they become monsters and demons. Like, you have a spirit of hunger, because, like, hunger in and of itself is not a bad thing, but when it's to an extreme, it can become a problem. Same goes for, like, spirits of wisdom become pride, which are real big, multiple-eyed monstrosity demons that are, like, every time one of those shows up, I'm like, oh boy, okay, we're in for a fight, let's go.
And that is exactly what Bosch's take on surrealism is, that there's always this world of the alien and the grotesque just underneath. So in the case of the previous two images, of course, it was this slow, gradual progression, but with the Last Judgment, which is, of course, Bosch is going with, we're not going to do subtle anymore.
Nah, subtle's overrated.
Exactly. And of course, with this one, it is the left panel has the Garden of Eden. At the foot of the panel, of course, God creating Eve from the rib of Adam, and Adam is looking, well, I'm pretty sure it's either confused, bored, or looking away due to, you just took out one of my ribs.
It is a bit of a paint me like one of your French girls pose, I have to say.
Which is an interesting take, because in this particular era, this particular style of pose is usually more reserved for different subject matters. So it is, again, Bosch challenging kind of the standards that were seen at the time. The panel is straight up where you start in any of these games where everything looks all normal and stuff, and then it goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Yep.
And in this particular case, the mid-ground is Eve is tempted by the serpent. They're being chased by an angel into a dark forest. And, of course, the proverbial final judgment, which has some definite video game connotations of, such as the veil changing the world around the creatures that are trapped within it. It's no longer the more pristine take that Renaissance had up to this point for Above and Below. This is more nightmare fuel at its finest.
Yeah, and there are some similarities in the middle and right-hand panel. If you're looking at it straight on, you can see in the background it's a very similar style to how he depicted the like far distance of hell in the Garden of Earthly Delights, with the lighting and like the lighting coming from the buildings and highlighting some of almost like the craggy rocks and the different layers. Almost like houses built into a cliffside could be a good comparison.
Definitely. Good catch, actually. I didn't even pull that one. The other kind of visual comparison I had on this particular image is how one of the FromSoft games, Elden Ring, depicts the realm of Caelid. These deep, kind of sickly browns and reds with these corrupted creatures that have been changed by the very realm they've been sentenced to. Which, again, same kind of take on how Bosch has told this progression. Especially even that the buildings look deformed, that things have been made out of tea kettles and eggs.
As I say, two of them kind of look like pots. There's one on the right in the middle that kind of looks like a gourd with a hat, and the hat has a knife.
Never trust a hat, I guess.
But my hat.
Also, definitely some of the more alien versions of the angels are much more prominent in this picture in comparison to the earlier where they were kept more in these animal or half human, half animal hybrids. These are much less questionable and much more directly. These are monsters. This is the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, very dark and sinewy. Some are vaguely chitinous and insectile. One looks like a little dragon with a sword, the dude that's on the roof of the one house that looks more vaguely house-like.
Yeah. Our flying lizard dragon friend, or flying winged lizard friend.
It's the winged lizard ferret.
Yes, winged lizard ferret! I was so close!
He's gotten so big!
The slow-moving ones were very tasty.
The colors that stick out the most in this, at least to me, looking at the middle panel, is a lot of like red and green.
Definitely.
Which are often associated with evil and bad stuff. And once again, Dragon Age tears in the veil are green, and red lyrium can turn anyone into powerful, very monstrous beings. In the second game, there's a woman who believes very much that she's doing the right thing. She's trying to keep the city together, keep the city safe, but as she is exposed to red lyrium and carries it around and keeps it with her, it twists her and it twists her until she turns into a statue. After you have to fight her, and all of the statues that she's making come alive to try and kill you, and then eventually she just turns into a red lyrium statue that no one is brave enough to touch, not even the reckless kids. No one's brave enough to touch Meredith.
Well, usually if somebody turns into a statue, you just leave it alone.
I'm curious about what's going on at the top of that panel, though, where it looks like almost like God is in conference with somebody.
Yes, that particular symbolism, where you see the various order of angels as well as this is the quite literal Last Judgment, where God is proceeding to judge the souls that will be proceeding and will go with not proceeding past to go or collecting $200. The right-hand side is the after effect of the souls that do get put down pass and go.
The ones that do not get the $200, they get the go straight to jail card.
Yep.
And do not have a get out of jail free card.
And also apparently lose their pants in most of them.
There aren't many people in either of these paintings that have pants on. They're all naked aside from the people that are in heaven arguing with God.
Exactly. That is another interesting kind of take on certain puritanical views back then of clothing and nudity, and this actually does even interestingly progress into what are some of the later Baroque and Romanticism paintings and their depiction of nudity, where this is where Bosch is still adhering to some of the standards of the figure at this time. But it is an interesting take on how even with what Bosch is challenging, what he chooses to show and what he doesn't choose to show, it holds very accurate to this of that particular time in these points.
Yeah, it's everyone's naked, but there's nothing sexual about it. There aren't any defined features in many of the bodies, or contorted in interesting ways, as they are being punished. Or perhaps turning on each other as they wait for their turn in the judgment.
Yeah, this is definitely a very interesting take for how games like FromSoft, the Bloodborne series, and Dragon Age, where judge not lest ye be judged, or beware there are monsters.
There are monsters everywhere and in all of us.
Yep. And of course, this is part of this is part of Bosch's own way of having the viewer kind of see their own kind of monsters within these images too. There are notes of pride and gluttony that can be located on this particular painting, while another one of Bosch's in the Museum de Gallo actually does continue kind of that idea of the seven deadly sins, and each kind of manifesting, much like Dragon Age and the Veil.
Yeah, Dragon Age, there's a variety of demons. You've got pride demons, rage demons, which operate with fire, plus demons that are very pretty, I have to say. Sloth demons kind of just look like blobs that are just kind of coming for you.
That looks like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen ones that represent like envy and gluttony, unless you want to talk about like the brood mother in Origins. You could argue that that's gluttony because that was created by eating darkspawn. Viewers, do yourself a favor if you don't know what that is. You don't need to look it up. You don't need to look that one up. It's the brood mother's not something you want to look at, Dustin. Don't you look it up.
I've got enough nightmare fuel. I'm good.
Yeah. I can't think of any representations for... Actually, no. There is Corypheus in Inquisition.
Oh.
He could be the best comparison for envy. Because the reason he hates your Inquisitor is because you can gain access to the Veil, which is what he was trying to do before you interrupted him, made him drop his thing, and then you just touched the weird glowing thing that the monster Darkspawn man dropped after doing something weird to the equivalent of the Pope. Because you're smart. Yeah, there are comparisons for... I might be missing one. I don't feel like doing math right now, but... It's always fun seeing comparisons and seeing how people portray the seven deadly sins. Also in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, I did very much enjoy, especially what they did with envy and greed. Oh yeah, greed.
He was a happy little guy.
I love what they did with greed in Brotherhood. Yeah. Greed doesn't always have to be bad. Sometimes your greed can be, I want to save everyone.
And revenge is sometimes worth it.
Yep.
And of course, with all of these particular games, there is kind of this one overarching theme that definitely does hail from Bosch's storytelling. Two specific examples I had thought about would be Dark Souls' Painted World of Hieronymus and Bloodborne's Nightmare Frontier. These are great takes on how Bosch's surrealism and this world underneath the world do play into effect. They layer these different realms of reality that are both grotesque and fascinating, where you can get lost in the details of the Last Judgment. But the bigger draw of these, of course, are these creature designs and the architecture that is both founded in physics, but then twisted to depict this world, that world underneath.
Yeah. Speaking of surrealism or worlds layered on top of each other, the Fade is definitely that, especially you end up accidentally falling into the Fade at some point in Inquisition, and the first cutscene, you and your companions are all standing up on the ground, but you're at different angles and some of the ground is floating around. And you have to find your way out, and there are places where, like, parts of the world echo into this one. There's one where there's a graveyard where you can see every single one of your companions' greatest fears.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And your companions have different reactions to going into the Fade, but it's weird for everyone. Because the last time someone went into the Fade, that's how we got Darkspawn and the Blight.
Awkward.
It was an accident, though. Back to the painting, though, looking at this last right-hand panel, I personally find it interesting that it looks like we're seeing a couple of homes there in hell.
Assuming.
They're buildings that could be construed as homes for the people that now live and forevermore will live there. One kind of looks like a traditional home carved into a mountainside. The other one kind of looks like someone turned a teacup upside down on top of that one.
Yeah, and it does actually even look like there is someone or something dwelling underneath that appears to be holding a broom and possibly a chicken.
I wonder if that's supposed to represent Baba Yaga. There's also some people just chilling on a fish at the very bottom.
Now, whether or not they actually like fish is another story, and if that's the case, we have determined their punishment. Sit on this fish.
Yeah, spotting some more extreme transformations, especially as you go up to about the middle section of that. I'm seeing a couple where it looks like the people were made to be much larger. One appears to be spewing fire from their mouths. I'm not sure what's going on with the other two. I'm assuming the green thing that looks like it's got a lollipop sticking out of it used to be a person. Either that or it's a creature tormenting someone.
Honestly, it could go either way. Impalement was kind of one of those really horrible ways to go out back then, and well, probably still is, but much less contemporary. But it does actually lead to another one of the techniques that Bosch was well known for, is known as visual stacking, where there are multiple themes that are layered atop of creatures, scenes, things of that nature. Usually this is what helps kind of create that world of the bizarre and obscene, as well as kind of disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
With visual stacking, the other kind of interesting notes with how these doors that lead to impossible spaces, the windows that show different realities. Think about games such as Dragon Age, where you see these portals that lead to different worlds. With Bloodborne, or we're going to go Elden Ring, the fog gates that lead you to these new worlds that are both fascinating, challenging, and usually going to be terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying and unsettling, but you still learn a lot by going to those places.
Exactly.
And you're talking about doorways that lead to impossible things. I know I can't be the only one that regularly dreams about being in a place where rooms are constantly changing. Or like rooms within rooms, or fun fact, last night I dreamed of this one place that was a mixture of elegance and decay almost, where some parts of it were like this very fine house and other parts were falling apart. You could never quite find your way out, and there were some places where there was something else there that you just knew better than to be around when that's happening. So Bosch pulls on a lot of things that often happen in dreams.
Exactly, and with the idea of dreams, that is pulling into the entire using the environment as a narrative device, where some paintings quite literally just have a green field. Bosch went, "Hold my wine and watch this," and he then transformed into part of the narrative.
Yeah, it's visual storytelling using all of the visual.
Even if it is sometimes nightmare fuel, so which is again leads into that great idea of the world beneath the world.
And there are a lot of people being impaled in this. There's one person that looking at the bottom, there's one person who is basically pinned to the wall with an arrow through their, looks like about their like base of their sternum, and one person who is on the exact opposite side is bent over, partially obscured by a pot with an arrow in an unfortunate place.
Yeah, unfortunate is the best term I can come up for on that particular situation. The use of how those forms are twisted and distorted as well does help to help. Well, that is a weird choice of words, but it helps illustrate the unnatural situation that they are now finding themselves in, because at this particular time in reality, or in the real world, most people are going to go, bodies aren't meant to go that way. So this adds another layer of that grotesque and alien feel to it.
Also, in that panel, there is no God.
Nope.
He's not there. He's not watching. You can't see him. There is no light, nothing to look to. Just the continual punishment. Just this world you find yourself in, which is a surreal nightmare that just keeps getting weirder the more you look at it. Stay tuned for more Bosch talk on An Unexpected Art Lesson.